As you may know, realtors have been in the news lately regarding legal troubles and abrupt changes in the industry, and I wanted to give a comprehensive overview of what I see going on and where we're probably heading. But first, a disclaimer. I was a realtor and part of a realtor office for the first 8 years of my career. I have not been a realtor for the last couple of years that I've been an agent, and this video is my own take on the situation as a real estate agent that actively works in this industry, and this is not necessarily the be-all, end-all final say on what's going on or how it will shake out. I am not a journalist. So first, a very overly simple overview. The National Association of Realtors, or NAR, has been fighting several lawsuits and legal battles regarding the structure of commissions. Since the 90s, buyer's agent compensation was paid by the seller from the proceeds of the sale. And as the market got hotter, sellers didn't like paying the buyer agent commissions and felt that they were overpaying for the services that they received. They argued that paying the commissions from the selling side led to antitrust, price fixing, overpaying, and reduced competition in the market. Consumers wanted more transparency regarding what the commissions were, who received them, and who pays them. They also wanted more options about how it gets paid. After much trouble navigating these legal arguments, in March, the Realtors offered a settlement of $418 million to put the matter to bed. Included in the settlement is a provision that Realtor MLSs will prohibit publishing an offered commission for buyers' agents on property listings. In other words, they are removing the offer of buyer's agent compensation from the listings on their MLSs and telling buyer's agents that they will need to negotiate their commissions directly with their own buyers and or the sellers of the listings that their clients want to buy. This has been a long time coming, but it's still a shock to the industry that has been trying to hear and adapt to the complaints of the consumers bringing the suit. In my multiple listing service, the Northwest MLS, forms were changed to put commissions more front and center and make it clear that commissions are always negotiable and that sellers don't even have to offer a commission. We also moved from having buyer's agency agreements be recommended good practice to being required in order to negotiate with the seller for a higher commission than what was offered on the MLS. Even now, forms changes are in the works to address the realtor settlement. However, my MLS is not a realtor MLS. So if you just got confused, don't worry, because it is confusing to like 99% of people that are not real estate agents. So let's go back and give this a little bit of context. Until very recently, the term realtor was synonymous with real estate agent to the average consumer. However, they are not the same thing. The National Association of Realtors is the closest thing that real estate agents have to a trade union. Most agents are independent, but across the nation, agents have joined NAR because they're a powerful lobbying group that advocates for the industry. Realtors have to pass an ethics class to become members and pay dues to their local and national realtor associations. NAR also offers classes, legal guidance, leads, and arbitration for disputes between its members. In addition to this, the realtors run most MLSs in the nation, and many real estate firms require membership with the realtors in order to work under their firm. My personal relationship with the realtors has always been a little bit complicated. The dues I always felt were very expensive, and the benefits to me on the ground felt intangible. I also disagreed with some of the causes that they fought for, such as aggressively lobbying to get real estate agents back to work as essential workers during the early days of the pandemic. We were among the first to be cleared to go back to work, though I was personally hesitant for a while. I didn't want to contribute to the spread of a deadly disease just to keep my sales numbers up. So the realtors have done some good things, though, like tax reform, lobbying for tax reform to make home buying more affordable. I was part of a firm that required membership, required membership to the realtors, so I didn't have a choice to leave the realtors unless I also wanted to leave that office. I tried once to just let my membership lapse and see if anybody noticed, but they were keeping track and they did make me, renew my dues. Most consumers do not know that not all agents are realtors, so they use the name interchangeably with real estate a real estate agent, and I honestly don't correct people when they call me a realtor if the context is just labeling me as a real estate agent. So while NAR does not represent all agents, they do represent a majority of MLSs, and about half of all agents are realtors. Therefore, what the realtors do, the entity, the NAR does, the industry usually follows. They are the market makers for the real estate sales industry. Currently, I am not a realtor, nor am I part of a firm that's associated with the realtors. I'm also part of an independent MLS that is not owned by the realtors. So, fast forward to what's going on now. The realtors are settling their legal troubles partially by removing commissions from their MLSs. This does not affect me directly since I'm not a part of a realtor MLS. However, non-realtor MLSs are allowed to opt into the settlement proposed by NAR in order to avoid being sued separately and directly for their own practices, which may be similar to NAR MLS practices. My non-realtor MLS has opted not to join the settlement, and let's talk for a second about why that is. You got to go back to what these lawsuits were originally about. The lawsuits started because consumers felt their choices were not transparent, that they were overcharged for services, and that sellers shouldn't have to pay commissions to buyers' agents. In response to all these issues, the Northwest MLS has made changes to how it operates. In 2019, they eliminated the requirement that a seller offer compensation to the buyer's broker and made the offer of compensation public so that consumers could know what was being covered by the sale. Mechanisms were also put in place so that buyer brokers could more easily and transparently negotiate for their commissions if no commission or too little commission was offered. In 2022, they decoupled broker compensation so that the seller pays commissions directly to the buyer broker, not the listing broker, and then have it be dispersed to the buyer's broker. That's the way it used to be. That way, the amount the seller is paying towards a buyer broker is more transparent. Before this, since the 90s, the commission was paid entirely to the listing firm, and the listing firm agreed to pay the buyer's agent commission to the buyer's agent's firm from the total commission that they received when the sale finally closed. In January of 2024, our MLS also required that agents enter into either a buyer or listing agreement to make it clear who represented who, and to clearly lay out expected services and compensation. All of this satisfies conditions of the NAR lawsuit and settlement, except removing any offer of compensation from the listing. We didn't do that because the MLS felt that particular point was a step back. And if you think about it, the whole point of the lawsuit is more transparency around commissions. So how is removing an offer of the commission from the published listing and encouraging agents to negotiate it on the back end more transparent? If anything, it opens up compensation negotiations to more shady practices. As my MLS put it in their statement, NAR's removal of compensation transparency from the MLS pushes consumers and brokers to make secret deals off MLS, inviting deceptive practices, discrimination, and unfair housing. Depriving buyers of information about the transaction risks harming buyers, especially those who are already disadvantaged, including first-time home buyers and members of protected classes. I agree with this. Another aspect that isn't that's talked about a lot less is that by pushing the payment of commissions onto the buyers and removing the burden from the selling side, it makes home buying more expensive for buyers who may now have to come up with money outside of the deal in order to get adequate representation in their home purchase. When commissions were paid by the sellers, the cost could be included in the offer price of the home and therefore could be financed in the buyer's loan. This structure makes homes more affordable for buyers and attainable for people that may have good income but less money to bring to the closing table on a home purchase. On the agent side of things, many realtor agents that are part of my MLS have breathed a sigh of relief about not operating in a realtor MLS, not realizing that as realtors, they must comply with the other rules that the settlement has put on individual realtors. Buried in paragraph 58, section 6, the text of the settlement agreement states that realtors must enter into a written agreement before the buyer tours any home, and that agreement must clearly state that how they are going to be compensated. It also bars open-ended compensation, which is how I currently write my buyer's agency agreements. That would be something like I expect to be paid 2.5% or whatever the seller is offering to pay the buyer's agent, whichever is more. I can also make my agreements dependent on different situations, like offering a discount or buyer credit for repeat business. Realtors will have to state a specific amount and accept that, even if more is being offered by the seller in my non-realtor MLS. To clarify, if a seller is offering 3% to a buyer's agent, as they're allowed to do in my non-realtor MLS, and that buyer's agent is a realtor that wrote up their buyer's agency agreement for 2.5%, then they may not receive that extra 0.5% when the deal closes, like I could with my open-ended agreement. On the other side, if they do write up the contract, if they do write up the contract to receive, back up. If they write up the contract to receive that advertised 3% commission, then they can face uncertain penalties for not complying with the settlement. As agents, we've been wondering if this means that realtors will now be writing in higher or lower commissions in these agreements, and I believe that most will be written higher, most likely at 3%, which would put the burden of paying any commission shortfall on the buyer, in addition to those costs that they're going to be incurring when they purchase a property. It's outside of those costs. This is why an open-ended agreement would be more advantageous for a buyer, especially one that does not have a lot of extra cash to bring to the closing table. As a non-realtor in my non-realtor MLS, I continue to have some freedom to negotiate my compensation plan with my buyer and negotiate with the seller if they don't offer a commission or they don't offer enough commission. Also, if something changes over the course of the transaction, I can make changes to my commission to help my client out or close a price gap, such as if a small pricing issue was jeopardizing the deal. I can also show homes without an agency agreement signed to see if we're a good fit. If you like my style after getting to know me, then we can finalize our working relationship with an agency agreement. I like having that flexibility as an independent agent. Realtor agents will be required to have an agreement signed before they do any showings, and any showings, and the terms are inflexible. The question that raises is, how are realtors supposed to compete if they will be required to get agreements for compensation in writing before they even offer any services? How can a realtor host an open house? Does everybody that comes in the door need to sign an agency agreement with the realtor host or be turned away? I'm not sure the average realtor agent really understands how much this settlement is going to be impacting them directly. At least these questions haven't been answered yet, really. We could really get into the weeds about the agent side of things, this particular part, but let's focus on the consumer side of things. So how would a consumer feel about being locked into an agency agreement with an agent that they have not met yet and agreeing to pay a minimum compensation before any services have been received? How would they feel if that agent is not a good fit later, but the agent won't let them out of the agreement that they were forced to sign? The whole purpose of the lawsuit was to make things more transparent and competitive, but the settlement seems to be NAR throwing their hands in the air and punishing consumers with the worst version of what they were requesting, while simultaneously making realtors less competitive in the marketplace. Buyers will have a tougher time buying homes now that they have to worry about possibly being on the hook for their agent commission out of pocket on top of all of their home expenses, home purchase expenses. They may also, as a result, make lower offers, since the home price has historically included the cost of commissions in the market sale value. It's always been the case that sellers could negotiate their commissions, and I understand the confusion about commissions because real estate transactions are complicated, even with help. But the choice to remove commissions from the listings entirely and make agents negotiate for them off market seems like an overreaction to a problem that was already on its way to being solved by making the process more transparent in the agreements that sellers sign when they're listing. If anything, it seems to make it more murky for the average consumer that's trying not to overpay for services. So where is this all going? It's hard to say. I would not be surprised if a lot of realtor offices drop their realtor associations and encourage their agents to do the same, especially in areas like mine where the MLS is not realtor controlled. I would also expect that consumers will eventually take issue with the backdoor commission change if it is disproportionately affects a buyer's ability to buy and thus impacts market price and activity. Consumers will hopefully also become more aware of the differences between real estate agents and realtors, which has historically been unclear. Realtor has been synonymous with real estate agent, and that's just not the case. The Northwest MLS, my MLS, is scrambling to update forms to allow agents operating under both rules to continue with their business using the same forms. Sitting on the fence in this way seems like a short-term solution to what really seems like a major market maker pushing the industry pushing hard in a direction. I think that the current and upcoming forms and rules are a temporary patch that will probably be seeing at least one revision in the next year as the industry kind of figures out how to adapt to changes in the market. But whether or not the forms are changed in the next year is purely my own speculation. It just feels unsustainable in its current form. Anyway, so this is my take on the current situation and doesn't even come close to touching on everything that's being impacted by the realtor lawsuits and settlement proposal. I've been asked by several past clients and some friends about what I think is going on, and I haven't been able to condense my answer very well, hence this longer video. Obviously, it's a complicated subject, and if you want to discuss this with me some more, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me at isaacravell.com. Thanks.